survive shotguns, but they survive with trauma, very often mental trauma that are not seen. It's not physically there, but the families and the individuals feel it. And that is something that we know we cannot continue with. So this is why we're here. This long journey that we've taken over the last, I've been with Gun Free South Africa since 2018, and there's been talk about it, and I know there's been a lot of work and consultations, and it's been a long journey. And during this time, there's been equal measures of anger and equal measures of hope for what has happened. The anger that comes from not being seen by our government, the anger of knowing that this police officer had done with other people that we don't know about, and it's probably still continuing, has done all of this, and nothing has been done. There's been no meaningful change. The families that have been affected have had no support from government. They've had no answers from government as to what has happened and why it is happening. We know that there's been no meaningful change around the government taking steps to safeguard the arms that are in their possession. And as a result, it will continue to happen. And that's what's making us so angry. And it's been going on for so very long. But we're also a very hopeful people. So we hope that today is the first step, or what has been happening now is a step towards meaningful change. That the families that have been affected will get answers, will be recognized, will be supported. And obviously that the government will need to do what has to be done to make the guns in their position safer and to look after it a little bit better so it doesn't stream into our communities. I hope that out of this, that the families will get some action, that you will feel the optimism that we feel here today, and that it will be realized and translated into something that means something valuable to you. Just on a very personal note, I myself am a mother of 2 teenage boys, and I want to thank you for standing up, because I live in constant fear of my 2 children, my 2 boys out on the streets, enjoying themselves doing what children do. And knowing that you have taken the courage to stand up today and to say to government, you will be held accountable. I thank you for that, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of other people in this room. And with that, I want to welcome the families that have stood up. I want to salute you for your courage, for standing up on this. You have gone through the biggest test that any human being can go through. A person who have lost a child, doesn't matter how that child was lost, but in your case it was deliberate, it was intentional. And we feel for you, we're standing with you, and we want to say thank you. Thank you very, very much for your courage. You are saying to government, this negligence must stop. This corruption that we know is clearly there, this corruption kills, and this is what we see what corruption can do. So thank you very much for that. The community organizations, the Cape Flats Community Forum, thank you for supporting the families, to find the families, to support them, to help them tell their stories, and to be able to bring us all to this point. Thank you very much for your passion and your vision for all of this. We're really, really grateful for that. Of course, we can have all the passion, we can have all the vision, but we do need finances in the end. And we want to say thank you very, very much for our donor community, our donor friends, our partners. And in particular, we want to say thank you for the Heinrich Böll Stichting, who has not only put in financial resources, but has walked the journey with us. Thank you. Thank you, Claudia is here. So thank you very, very much for walking this walk with Gun Free South Africa and all the communities that have been affected by that. So thank you. And also then, Norton Rose, we want to welcome you. And Jason White is here. Jason will give us a good breakdown of what the steps forward will be, what has happened up until now, and what the way forward will be. So you will break it down for all of us. Last but not least, thank you very much to Adele and her team, the Gun Free South Africa team, the staff who has worked diligently and tirelessly with the communities, with our legal partners, with our donors, with everyone else to make this possible. And this is not the vote of thanks, but one cannot help but bring it in quite early on. The Gun Free board has also been very, very engaged, and there's old board members I see here. Thank you for that. Janet has mentioned the Reverend Desmond Tutu, who is here with us in spirit today. We know what his commitment has been to violence. And then we also have two other two other organizational patrons, Ms. Prague Scovender and Reverend Peter Story. Both have sent their apologies, but is equally committed to the cause of gun free and to what our communities hope to achieve. I have a couple of household points that I just wanted to say. When you registered as you came in, you were asked for consent for your photo to be taken. I know that some people have taken white ribbons. I don't know who. But people who are taking pictures, if you could please take note of that. If someone is wearing a white ribbon, please do not take their picture. We really want to preserve people's privacy. We are also going into a period where it could get quite dangerous, so it's all the more reason for people to be protected and to have their privacy protected in that way. So just on that note, I just wanted to say that we don't have printed programs, but I will just give you a quick overview. We will hand over, when I am done here, I will hand over to Adele Kirsten. She's the CEO of the director of Gun Free South Africa, and she will tell us why we are going through with this class action. And then we will hear from two mothers. We will hear from Rashida, and we will hear from Melanie, what their experience have been. And we are putting a face to the 30 people that are killed every day, the 180 who are injured every day. There are people behind these numbers, and I think it's really, really important that we are reminded of that at a time like this especially. And thereafter, we will ask Jason to just give us a breakdown and take us through what the next steps will be on the class action. And then with that, we will give everyone a chance for some questions, for any clarifications. There are also some things that we have set up in the back, some photos, old newspaper articles that you can please feel free to read through if you need a little bit of time to reflect. There's lots of space to just sit and think about what is happening today. If there's anyone here who is not part of the class action but would like to be part of it, please reach out to Adele or any of her team members. They're wearing the gun-free T-shirts or hoodies. Please find them and sign up with them if you're interested or if you just want more information. Okay, so with that, I'm looking around. I think that's probably it in terms of the household. What's name? And with that, Adele, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Yolandi. What we're going to do is I'm going to light the central candle, and then the two mothers will light the candles when they tell their stories. Thanks, Janet, for welcoming us here and for hosting this with us. And thank you to all of you for being here, including the press, because this is an important story that needs to be told. And so we are gathered here today because we want to hold the state to account for the loss and the suffering, the pain and the trauma of families who in an instant lives were changed because of Prinsloo guns. Some of these families are here. In fact, we have 9 families who are part of our founding affidavit, and I want to read their names. Not all of them are here. Mansour Eckstein, Andre Levi Cornelius, his wife Diane Cornelius, Denise Mentor, Evelyn Davids, Melanie Kill, Natalie Dirks, Simone Julies, Rashida Andrews, who's the mother of Nizam Cupido. These are the 9 families who have joined the class action. But there are many other families in this room who are not part of the class action. But they too have suffered the loss of a child shot and killed or shot and injured. There are mothers here from Atlantis who have had no joy from SAPS, and they are sitting with open case dockets. One of our mothers from Mitchell's Plain has a case docket open since 2015. No gun has been recovered. No perpetrator has been to book. So we welcome all of these families, not just those who have joined us in the class action. And of course, there are many others who are not named in any report. They're not named in our founding affidavit. We have the list of 261 MP project children, but there are many others, and they are not known to us. This mother is not known to us, and yet we have used her picture all over. And this is a reminder, it's the figure of just over 30 people being shot and killed every single day. But what do we know? So what we know is that between 2007 and 2015, Prinsloo and Naidu stole 2,000 plus guns and an unknown amount of ammunition and distributed them into criminal hands. These guns are linked to just over 1,000 murders, and these individuals that I mentioned, the 261, they come to us because of the Jacobs and Veery Labour Court papers and Project MP. And what those court papers show is that 187 of these 261 individuals were under the age of 17. 67 of them were killed. And in 2016, from an internal SAPS report, it was reported that there are still over 1,000 Prinsloo guns that were not recovered. This means they are continuing to maim and kill. They are continuing to circulate in communities, and particular communities on the Cape Flats. And I'm afraid to say there is no evidence to suggest that recovery is a priority for the SAPS. So I think we must assume, I'd said we can assume, I think we must assume that there are hundreds of families out there who could potentially join this class, who are still being killed by Prinsloo guns. We also know, as Yolandi mentioned, that guns continue to move from the legal to the illegal market, whether it's through loss and theft from civilians, from the private security industry, or whether it's guns directly under the control of the state through SAPS 13 stores, through the armory, such as what Prinsloo did. These guns are continuing to move into criminal hands. So what this tells us is that the problem is systemic. I know we've pinned it on Prinsloo. And so in a sense, we've given the individual, we've tagged this onto the individual. But this, Prinsloo could not do it on his own. And he had lots of people who assisted him, some of whom we know and some of whom we don't know, some of whom have never been exposed. But what we do know is that these guns are continuing to move from the legal market into the illegal market. And so this problem is systemic in the sense that the entire system, the structure of the entire firearms control management chain in this country is broken. it is weak, it is inadequate. And what that means is it's from the point of manufacture all the way through to the point of sale, the point of use, and to what we call the life cycle of the gun, which is its destruction. Guns earmarked for destruction were exactly the weapons that Prinsloo stole and moved into criminal hands. And that means the system needs to be fixed. Prinsloo could not have done this as an individual with help if the system did not have loopholes that he could exploit, and he did. He subverted the system in order to move guns into the hands of criminals. But already in 2011, there were reports of problems in the whole management chain of firearms. Gun-Free South Africa certainly started picking up in early 2011 about the fraudulent issuing of licenses through the Central Firearms Registry, the falsification of training certificates, the movement of guns out of SAP's 13 stores. And what we need to remember is that this kind of lack of or inadequate firearms control management system, the poor enforcement of the existing law, as well as insufficient state control of firearms, this happens over the last 10 to 15 years in the context of the hollowing out of our state institutions. So it's a much bigger picture. And of course, we provide some detail in our founding affidavit of what we see as some of the key weak points, which I'm not going to go into that. It's clear then that the state, and in particular the SAPS, the Ministry of Police, is liable for the harm caused by the actions of its employees, Prinsloo and Naidu, and therefore the state must be held accountable. SAPS failed to uphold its constitutional, statutory, and its international obligations under global gun control laws. Under the Constitution, the state, and remember the police is an arm of the state, SAPS is an arm of the state. The state has a duty to protect the right to freedom and security of the person, including the right to be free from all forms of violence. But more so under our national gun law, as well as under several regional, as well as international gun control protocols. The state has a particular responsibility that it has to control and regulate its guns for the sole purpose of preventing diversion into the illicit market. And the protocols make it very clear, and I quote, that the state has a duty to establish and maintain an accurate and comprehensive record-keeping system to enable the authorities to track illicit small arms and light weapons in a reliable manner. Several of the protocols emphasize that in order to prevent diversion at the point of destruction, because it's recognized globally that that's the most vulnerable point for a weapon in the entire cycle of the weapon. So it emphasizes that record keeping is essentially for managing stockpiles before they go for destruction. And yet, as you know, we've served papers and we gave notice a couple of weeks ago to the state. This class action should not come as a surprise to the Ministry of Police. In 2016 already, an internal presentation made to senior SAPS officials, which we have filed in our papers, the following was noted in respect of Project MP, and I quote directly. Some 200 plus of these firearms have been recovered, but more than 1,200 need to be recovered. Any further crimes committed with these firearms will potentially increase the risk of litigation against the SAPS. It continues. The scope of the possible litigation is enormous. Should the deceased have been breadwinners and were either killed or injured, leading to present or future medical costs, pain, as well as lost income. in 2016, the state knew and acknowledged its liability and yet did nothing. So it is liable and it must be held to account for its failure to safeguard the weapons that were under its direct control, that were earmarked for destruction. And I say this again, and you will hear us saying it again and again. This failure enabled someone like Prinsloo to put guns into the hands of criminals. It's as simple and direct as that. In my closing, what I want to say is that at one level it feels like the end of a journey, but it really is the beginning. And Gun-Free is very clear that the bringing of this class action is an act of hope, because it provides the opportunity for change and to make a difference and to stop the movement of guns into our communities. And really, I want to say to the Minister of Police, this is an incredible opportunity for you to make amends at two levels. One is to meet with the families and say sorry. It didn't happen under your watch, but it happened under the institution that you now lead. So to make amends and to say sorry and to provide some kind of relief. Secondly, is to fix the system, to go after the Prinsloo guns and all guns that are circulating illegally in our society, and to strengthen and reduce the circulation and the possibility for guns to move from the legal into the illegal market. This can be done. So this is about preventing. And one of the main reasons, and you will hear this again from families, not just those in the class action, is the reason people are part of Gun-Free South Africa is they want to make sure that this is prevented, that there are not other families that have to go through the same trauma and pain. So bringing this class action is an act of hope that something can change and needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. That's okay. So now I will bring in Rashida and Melanie to share their stories with us. Yeah, will you go first?
Yes.
Sure. Will you be able to stand so that the people?
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, just hold on.
Sure.
Good day, everyone. I'm Melanie Kill. Sorry for this. My son Dudley Richards was shot and killed at the age of 17 on the 2nd of December 2013. And it happened on the Monday night after 10. Him and his friend were on their way home. His friend took him halfway. So then as he came out of the house, that he went in for a glass of water, as he came out the gate, he saw this guy being shot, killed, and then he tried to run. So then they shot him in the arm, and then as he tried to carry on running, they shot him in his head to make sure that he died. And since then, we are not the same as a family. His siblings are suffering, not financially, whatever. Well, we are suffering because he was the breadwinner in the house. He used to work for my mom at the taxi rank and all that. And my late father, couldn't handle his death. And his elder brother always motivated him to build a life for himself, and which he did. And mentally, financially, we are still suffering. And as I think, when I look at my other son as his elder brother, and I look at his family, then I think, what about Dad? He was supposed to be 27 years of age now, this year. So, I mean, it's hard so. And what makes it worse is that I never got any feedback from the police. Nothing happened. There are no results in connection with this case, and it's going for 10 years now, which I think is totally unfair. And that's the reason why I joined this class action with Gun Free South Africa, is because I want some closure, because, it's totally unfair from my point of view for someone's life to be taken just like that and nothing happening. And I mean, he still had his whole life ahead of him. He was only 17 years of age. And as I said, this is the reason why I joined class action. It's because to prevent from other people's children also to lose out on their lives. Seeing that I'm a grandmother of 2 grandchildren, 2 sons, so I mean they're growing up here in Cape Town. So I think something should be done about this, really. Thank you.
Hi, goedemorgen. Mijn naam is Rasida Eendroes. Ik is de mami van die Zaam Kibedo. Ik wil net vanochtend voor een en elk van die zeggen dat ik is een van die gelukkige mamies. Om het zo te stellen. Nizam was geskiet, maar Nizam heeft het oorleef. En voor die mamies wat hier zit vanochtend, wat hulle kinders verloor het. Ik wil net vir daardie mami sê dat ek voel die pyn saam met hulle. As 'n ma voel ek die pyn, want dat kon my kind ook gewees het. Maar Allah het hom 'n tweede kans gegee. En my verlange vir hom is om gebruik te maak van daardie tweede kans. Almal van ons is nie bevoorreg om 'n tweede kans te kry nie. As jy die tweede kans kry, gryp hom met al 2 hande en weet wat om met die tweede kans te doen. Ja, Nizam het die specifieke Saterdag vroeg aand, het hy en 'n vriend van hom gesit in die voorkamer op die computer. Ek en my oorlede man was op die oomblik nie daar nie. Ons was 'n vriend wat 'n strook gehad het, gaan besoek in die tafelsig. En ons het plus minus 20 minute gewees daar. Toe kry ons die oproep, ons moet dadelik huis toe kom, want Nizam is geskiet. En elke ouer wat hier sit, kan hulle maar net voordink om op 'n toneel soos daai af te kom en jou kind te sien lê, is hartseer. Die eerste ding wat deur my mind gegaan het, is my kind is oorlede. Ek het net 2 tree gegee na die scene toe en ek het teruggedraai en ek het vir my oorlede man gesê, ek kan dit nie aanskou nie. Ek kan nie sien dat my kind en is my baby. Ek kan nie sien dat my kind daar lê nie. Hy het gegaan, hy het dua gemaak en hy het hom aan die praat gehou. En toe die ambulance kom, wat die ambulance vra dat wie van ons 2 gaan samen om te sê, ek is jammer, maar ek sal dit kan maak nie. Laat my man maar gaan, toe sê my man, nee, ons sal maar achterna kom met die kar, hy kan maar gaan. Maar op daardie specifieke aand, ek kan net Allah sê, sjoeker, daar was 2 sisters wat verpleegsters gewees het, en hulle het sulke wonderwerke gedoen vir daardie 2 wat daar gelede, die 12-jarige is op die spot oorlede en die mami wat Daar was 2 lange by die winkel gewees, die mami, wat die skietery begin het, die mami die haarself oor die 2 lange gegooi, om hulle te beskerm. En sy het dit nie gemaakt nie, sy het op die operasietafel, het sy gesterwe. En sy het 'n papa babatjie, het sy haarself agtergelos. En, maar ons is dankbaar vir haar. Sy het gegaan as 'n hero, soos ons het sê. Haar kinders het groot geraak sonder 'n mami. Maar my boodskap vir almal, en soos Adele gesê het, die staat moet responsible gehou word vir wat gebeur het. Want as hulle beter die wapens kon beskerm het, sou dit nie plaasgevind het nie. En vir die mammies wat vanmiddag hier sit, wat vanoggend hier sit, ek wil vir hulle net sê, whatever hulle besluit, ek is 100% saam met hulle. En dan wil ek vir hulle vra, laat ons daar wees vir mekaar, in hierdie groep waarin ons is. Laat ons daar wees vir mekaar, laat ons uitreik vir mekaar, laat ons mekaar se pyn voel, en laat ons net liefde gee vir een en elk. En weet nie, ek wil hier net die stukkie sê, die aand op pad Grootskuur toe, soos ons ry, ek is baie active van my community, ek werk met kinders, ek is 'n neighborhood watch member, ek het nou training gedoen vir 'n peace officer, so ek is baie active in my community. Die aand wat ons ry, Grootskuur toe, ek sit in die kar, ek sê, ek praat met my maker, ek sê, ja Allah, ek gaan Allah vanaand op die proef stel. Ek gaan vir Allah vra vanaand, as Allah my kind gaan uitspaar vir my, gaan ek die ouers daar buite waarmee ek besig is, se kinders, ek gaan nader na hulle toe groei, en ek en my man gaan 'n ma en 'n pa wees vir hulle. En ek wil vandag vir u sê, ek het gebesluit by my besluite, ek het gebly by my besluite, wat ek geneem het op daardie spesifieke aand, en ek het nog nooit kom spyt kry nie. En ek sal vir altyd by daai besluite bly, tot die dag Allah my van hierdie dunia af wegvat. Ek wil net vir julle sê, een en elk, baie dankie, en spesiaal vir Adele. Baie, baie dankie. Shukran vir almal.
Thanks, everybody. Sure, that was quite emotional. Ladies, as lawyers, I think we often see the cases that we bring just in terms of the pieces of paper we push forward. We don't often realize that there's real living people behind these cases. A class action is a special kind of case. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but we bring it on behalf of an unknown group in very many cases. That's the whole point. But we need to remember that there are real individuals behind the class action. And I take my hats off to the families that have come and spent time in our offices, who have told their stories, and who have given us the material that we need to bring the class action to begin with. Because without those individual stories, you can't even get past step 1 of the class action. We need you there. Secondly, I'll just like to express what a tremendous privilege it is to partner with Gun Free South Africa. It's been a very long partnership between Gun Free and the Norton Rose Fulbright Impact Litigation Team. We've worked on a number of matters, but I think everything has been building towards this matter. I think Adele and Claire probably may have had a bit of justified skepticism as to whether this was ever going to get on the ground. I think we, my team, who have worked on the matter, and many lawyers have worked on the matter, we've had a lot of self-doubt that we've had to get over. How are we going to formulate this very difficult case? how are we going to prove it if we get into court? And we had to get through all of those hurdles and tunnels and rabbit holes before we could get to the point where yesterday we were able to take our papers down to court to get them issued by the registrar of the Western Cape High Court. We've got a case number. The matter is now running. It is a reality, and we will see it through to the end. It's also a significant matter. A lot of these class action cases tend to get brought on what you call a contingency basis, where it really is a commercial matter, where at the end of the day somebody or a law firm is generating fees out of it, and there is some financial backer. Gunfree have brought this matter on a completely pro bono basis. They've had to do all the running around. Very often people have had to volunteer their own time to get this matter over the line. So to Adele, Claire, Monique, and all of your team, it really is a tremendous thing that you've managed to achieve. All right, so why do we have a class action? Ultimately, it's about redress to a large group of people. Now, when any other case that we bring in court, we tend to know who the victim is of the injury, we know the facts that caused the injury, and by and large we know what injuries or loss that particular person has suffered. Here we're in a very different situation. We know some of the victims, such as the ladies that have spoken here today, are victims of princely guns. We know, because we have SABC's own records, that there are potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of named victims that are part of the class. But it's more than that. It's very inclusive. Potentially any person within the entire country who may have suffered loss as a consequence of a shooting with a princely gun is part of the class. So we bring it for those people as well, the unnamed people that down the line will be able to establish that they have a claim. All right, so just to give you a little bit of a sense of what we do know. So you can't bring a class action just in a vacuum because it's some sort of hypothetical way of bringing the case. We have to have some facts to work with. Now, apart from what the families have told us, we've had a remarkable insight due to SABC's own records. It's not often that in very many ways the party on the other side, the defendant, who is ultimately going to pay you the damages, gives you part of the case on a platter. And that is the outcome of Project Impi. We actually have a very good sense of, from SABC's point of view, what was going on. We've had access to the plea bargain that Colonel Princely signed in order to get a very lenient sentence out of the state. And we know for a fact that Colonel Princely and his collaborator, Colonel Naidu, in fact, took these guns, which should have been kept within the SAP stores, and distributed them through various means to criminal elements, including the gangs. We know that those guns were then used to shoot various members of the public. It's an ongoing class. It's not just something that stopped when Princely was caught. Those guns are still out there, as Adele has pointed out, and they have slowly distributed themselves in the rest of the country, where they are used every day, not just in the ganglands, but potentially in KZN, in taxi violence and so on. So we know all that. You then say, well, that's all very well, but how are we going to say that any particular princely firearm is a princely firearm, or that it was responsible for shooting any particular person? Well, again, we've got admissions from SAPS themselves. They said they recovered these firearms. They were quite clearly princely firearms because the markings had been erased in a very particular way, and they were then able to test those firearms ballistically and compare the results with bullets that they retrieved from various crime incidents in the Western Cape. So we've got a whole body of fairly good evidence. We still need to be able to prove it at the end of the day, but even on SABC's own record, we've got a very good sense that the princely firearms did, as a matter of fact, cause the deaths and injuries of a large number of people. But we've also gone further. We've enlisted the assistance of a very well-known UK-based ballistics expert who can tell us exactly how we would go about discovering for any particular person whether that person was shot or killed with a princely firearm. So there is a methodology for doing that. Richard Matsopoulos is an epidemiologist at the Medical Research Centre, has also been instrumental as an epidemiologist in allowing us to understand that during the period that these firearms were released, there was a huge and very noticeable uptick in gun-related deaths, and the only plausible explanation that these were a consequence of the use of the princely guns. So as it turns out, we know quite a lot, and where we are going to take all this is to show that the minister did not discharge the various obligations he and his various other the National Commissioner and Provincial Commissioners, the obligations that they were under. And in legal terminology, we call that the duty of care. And that arises from a number of sources. It arises from the common law, it arises from the Constitution, and it arises from the SAPS Act itself. So it's really just a fancy way of saying that where the government is in a particular position of power, where you control firearms, where you control personnel who can cause the public harm, and you don't adequately guard against that harm, then you are liable for negligence and for any damages that are caused to the public. So that's why we say the minister breached his duty of care. So how's this all going to work from a procedural point of view? And I don't want to get too much into all the sort of legal technicalities, but it's quite important that everybody has a good sense of where we are and where we're going. So the application that we filed yesterday is what we call a certification application. And that's really to ask the court for permission to bring the class action itself. Now that is important because class actions are fairly unusual and fairly awesome remedies that can be brought. We are acting on behalf, not just on behalf of the people that come to us and give us a direct mandate, but an undefined class of people, thousands of people out there who we've never met, we don't know. So the court has to be satisfied that we are acting in good faith, that we have the resources and capabilities to represent the broader public, and not just the people that have come to us and given us a direct mandate. So that's incredibly important. The court must also be persuaded that there is actually a case for the minister to answer. So we've got to establish, that, as I've gone through now, that there is a way in which we can establish a claim that for any individual we can show that they were in fact shot, and that we're not just speculating wildly and hoping that we might get some money out of the minister down the line. So we think, and why this has taken so long to get to court is because we've had to go through this very rigorous process, and we are confident that when the High Court, Western Cape High Court, hears the matter and applies the principles that were established in the Constitutional Court, being the interests of justice, that we will almost certainly prevail in having the matter certified. The matter is, of course, going to be opposed by the minister. I think we must accept that. We don't know what the minister is going to come along and say. But equally, we hope that once a considered analysis of the papers is performed by the minister and his legal team, that there is going to be some scope for possible settlements and some sort of amicable resolution to the class action as a whole. Thus far, we have been surprised, and it is very unfortunate that when approaches were made to the minister to sit down, to look at the facts objectively and dispassionately, he refused to even meet with ourselves and with Gunfree. And that is extremely disappointing, and it means that we have been forced to go to court. So once we get the certification order, we go into stage 1 of the class action. It's called the opt-out stage. And the point of stage 1 is to really show that, in principle, the minister is liable for the loss. We aren't individual focused at this stage. We're really just saying, well, in principle, is the minister liable for failing to ensure that these firearms were not released into the ganglands? And that's very important because it tests the deficiencies in the firearm regulations. It places a positive obligation on the minister to explain why things haven't been done better. And I think that from a broader structural point of view is going to be very important for gun free. It's called the opt-out stage because any individual has an opportunity to opt out of the matter. They might not like the legal team, they might not like Gun Free South Africa acting on their behalf, so they will have the opportunity to opt out and go it alone if they so wish. It's not an option that in practice is exercised very often or ever. So that for us is the most important stage. Once we get to the point where a judgment is released by the court saying, the minister, you are liable for anybody who can prove that they were shot or know somebody or suffered loss as a result of a shooting with a princely firearm. Once that principle is established, I think the minister will almost certainly set up a process whereby individuals can come forward and satisfy the minister that they have valid claims and receive some form of compensation. But if that doesn't happen, we move into stage 2, which is called the opt-in process, and that allows any individual to come to us and Gun Free South Africa and say, look, I have reason to believe I was shot with a princely firearm, or a loved one was shot with a princely firearm, or a supporter. And then we will go into the ballistic evidence, we will get SABC's records, and we will assist in proving each of those individual cases. But ultimately our hope is that we don't have to get there because there will be some means that we can set up with the minister to adequately compensate the individuals. I'm sure everybody wants to know timing, and the one thing lawyers hate being asked is how long is it going to take, because often we just simply don't know. This is a lengthy process. We are confident that as far as the certification application is concerned, if we're not in court by the end of the year, it will be in the early part of next year. There are papers that need to be exchanged. The minister is given a fairly lenient period of time to put opposing papers in. Essentially that boils down to about 2 months, and we then have a chance to respond to those papers. Our advocates will go to court and argue the matter, it is unfortunately a time-consuming process. All of the other class actions, such as the silicosis matter, there's a microfinancing matter that's being run by the Stellenbosch Legal Aid Clinic. These matters all follow the same fairly predictable course. They do take time. But it is critical for everybody to know that Northern Rose Fulbright and Gun Free, we have said under oath to the court that we are behind this matter. We're here to support it. We're not going to walk away once the publicity dies down. We're in it for the long haul. So I'm sure there will be some questions. I'm going to stop there, but once again, I'll just really like to thank everybody at Gun Free, particularly Adele and Claire and Monique, who have worked in the team on a day-to-day basis. The rest of my team, who unfortunately had to move on to other urgent matters that we're running, Laura, Tando and Latando, they've put in tremendously long hours in this matter, often late at night. And then all the other attorneys at the firm who have in some way contributed, even if it's running around fixing photocopier machines and so on. So thank you very much, Yandi. I've probably said way too much, but thank you, and once again, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, and for that overview. Very comprehensive and very clear. Jason. And thank you to the ladies. I forgot to say thank you to the mothers early on for sharing your stories with us. We have some time. I know there's some coffee, tea waiting. And some food waiting for us. But let's take a bit of time. Sorry, I heard someone say something. Let's take some time. If there are any questions, any comments, anything that you'd like to share with us, any experiences for any of us here on the table, for any of the people, members of the audience. Now's your time. No questions. Wow. Thank you.
If someone is in another part of the country, or in Richards Plain, how would they have any idea if they could be related to the Prinsley guns? Like, is there any way if you've lost a child or a family member from me?
Jason will answer the question, but I just wanted to ask.
Okay. Great. It's a difficult question to answer because, unfortunately, as I'm sure Adele will be able to tell you, there's a lot of guns that get released illicitly into the South African market. We hear about AK-47s that come in from over the border. They're used in taxi violence and so on. Those definitely aren't princely guns. So how does anyone know? I think there are a number of just simple factual evidentiary issues that I think are going to come out of the class action, namely that certain types of firearm were released by Prinsley. They were specifically returned to SABC because there were various patent infringement issues when we came out of apartheid. But yeah, I mean, the class action will be advertised once we get through certification. There will be radio and prints and web-based advertisements that go out. I think then people will start looking and introspecting, and then will come forward. I think it's inevitable that there will be people that come forward that don't have a claim because the firearm involved was not a princely firearm. But we're hoping that we can eventually build a database of people who probably qualify or at least are within the parameters that we've set, yeah. But it does apply to the entire country because these firearms could be anywhere, yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Today I'm Jane Douglas from Atlantis, South Africa. That is also my question because my son was in shot 21, September 18, and I'm still waiting on the investigator to come back to me if he received the post-mortem report because it's 2 years almost, and he every time told me we didn't receive the post-mortem report because I would like to know if my son was being shot whether by a Prinsley gun or what gun was he being shot with. Last week I was WhatsApping him. He said to me, he don't get the answer from the mortuary because he's still waiting on his telephone mortuary for the post-mortem report. And no witnesses, no nothing. I don't hear from the investigator unless I'm talking to him. He never come back to me with anything. That is my concern.
Jane, thanks for raising that. Gunfree has gone into support with, in fact, 12 families. Some of you from Mitchell's Plain, but I see Leslie here, from Atlantis, and Leslie from Mitchell's Plain. So we took affidavits from 12 families over in October last year. All of those families have outstanding murder case dockets, okay, with their sons. We don't know if it's a Prinsley gun because the gun was not recovered. But in all these instances, the dockets are open. What we did is we collected the information and did a long affidavit and sent the stuff to the Division Inspectorate, to the Police Inspectorate, to Lieutenant General Jacobs. They responded immediately within 48 hours. Individual SAPS officers here in Cape Town were required to interview the mothers. So not the investigating officer, but the officer is taken from another station. So it's to investigate basically the fact that SABC is providing, not following procedure and isn't providing proper service. A report is written, it goes up to the provincial inspectorate, it pushes back up to the national inspectorate, and for a couple of weeks, I'm going to say die poppige dance, because the investigating officer suddenly started visiting the mothers, saying, am I allowed to say this? Yeah. You're making us work hard. You and Gunfrey are making us work hard. We were only asking you to do your job. So there was a flurry of activity, and then boom, nix. The IOs have gone back to sleep. 6 months later, nothing. And so it was a tick box exercise. We kind of registered some kind of action and interest. We know that some of the officers have disciplinary against them, but because of Poppy, we cannot access the disciplinary. It's seen as internal. We do have the option to go PIA. But I'm glad Jane's raised this, because what this means is Gunfrey's clear, there's the class action, and in some ways we have the names, and they're easier to get to. But we are continuing to work with mothers who have lost children to gun violence and building a bigger movement. And so bringing in people who come to this issue from different perspectives, so that it's much bigger than the class action. And for all of these mothers as well, it's about making sure that these guns are recovered. But they're not. And Leslie, you want to... So in a way, we can't answer your question, Jane, but Jane's bringing it into the room.
So I'm one of the moms whose docket is still open from 2015. I've collected enough evidence to incriminate SABC on a whole. I've by myself, together with Moms Move for Justice, investigated our matter, and if it wasn't for Avril and I that hounded the courts and the police for the evidence, the matter was, the perpetrator was acquitted because SABC's senior official did not sign the confession of Mama San's murderer. And so a murderer was set free. We've tried to get the recordings. It took me also blood, sweat and tears to get the recordings from the court, because what the judge said on that day is that SABC need more training. SABC are inadequate and incompetent of doing proper investigation, and now she is forced to release a murderer. And we left the court with that. And it is years later, and thanks Adele for making me part of that group of moms. The captain from Macassar was there. I was given another detective's name that was meant to come and interview me, and that has not happened. And that is what Adele is referring to for the past 6 months. Absolutely nothing.
From the Moms Move for Justice. I think I just want to comment on Gunfrey South Africa and thank them for okay, I'll repeat. Avril Andrews is my name. I'm from Hanover Park. I think from the family side, working with families since 2015, families that lost children through gang violence. I think this gave families hope,
we knew something needed to be done. When I lost my son, I knew something needed to be done. So, Gun Free South Africa, I'm standing here today on behalf of all those moms. We want to thank you for taking this forward. I knew ons het nie die geld nie, ons het nie die attorneys nie, ons het nie geweet waar om te begin nie, but when we met Adele, we knew this is a partnership and we're giving our families hope. And it's not about the money, it's not about, but some authorities, government need to be kept, held accountable for what has happened. We're seeing families every day. This is still happening. One of our volunteers had to step over a body just to enter her home, so it's still happening. But this is giving us hope, and we know together we can do this and move forward. Thank you, Gun Free South Africa.
Hi, good day to you. My name is Lynn Phillips. I'm from the Cape Flats Safety Forum based in Mitchell's Plain. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to a very prominent person that has taught us as the Cape Flats Safety Forum, Major General Weary. I want to say thank you to the Gun Free South Africa for taking the initiative and assisting us. We've been moaning and groaning since 2002 in relation to the guns on the Cape Flats. But because we didn't have the finances to take it further, but we're supporting the families, I just want to say that yes, this is the class action, and we want to say thank you for the support. We want to say thank you to the attorneys for doing what they are doing. But in January alone in Mitchell's Plain, 20 murders via guns. January alone in Mitchell's Plain. We are saying we are tired of standing over an open grave and sending out condolences to the communities and those parents who lost their children. We might not have lost children, but we feel the pain of the parents because we go to the crime scenes and we witness what is happening there. So we want to say, in Mitchell's Plain 2017, 15 guns were stolen. I maintain 15 guns were stolen, although thefts say that 15 guns got missing. I maintain it's stolen. One of the firearms was retrieved in Manenberg. Belleville South Police Station, 2017, 17 guns stolen, heavy caliber guns. So what are we saying as Cape Flats Safety Forum in conjunction with Gun Free South Africa, because we have a partnership, that enough is enough and the system needs to be addressed within SABC. That SABC members need to be trained, because in government, my understanding of government is that they have an asset register that needs to be looked at on a monthly basis. Why are this not done? We're also saying as the Cape Flats Safety Forum that we want specialized units to look at guns and drugs on the Cape Flats. That is what we want. But further than that, we are saying, if you identify those members to do those work, we are saying that a lifestyle audit needs to be done, because we are tired of the corruption within the state. Thank you.
Morning everybody, my name is Marsha. I'm volunteering at the Al Cardio Andrews Foundation. I am also standing here Monday afternoon when I got home. I couldn't enter my gates because there was a body. I don't know what was happening, but they just didn't want us to enter. The week before that, I saw a guy with a gun, and he was standing behind an old man, gun pointing this old man, and I was like, why would you do that? Children were running, but they were so scared. I mean, Menenberg is a red zone already. We don't even know if we are up or if we are down. People are dying, children are dying. We just can't take it anymore. I don't know if I must go home, whether I'm going to be safe or not. Seeing the perpetrators every day with guns in their hands, I just can't anymore. I feel like giving up already. But I just need to stay strong for the sake of our mothers that is losing children. Thank you.
Good afternoon, each and everyone, all media, all protocol observed. I'm A.B. Isaacs, the chairperson of the Cape Flat Safety Forum. I think when we took this particular decision, we took it consciously to say that enough is enough, as my learned colleague have indicated. We've also seen through the years in our days, and I need to rectify this, I was the CPF chairperson at one stage, but then we've also started, within that in space, you had limited intervention with the institution called your partner, the South African Police Services. That then gave us the opportunity to start and move out of that space and start the Cape Flat Safety Forum and start moving with this thing. I think also in the same vein we've observed that specifically now, even now as we are standing here, as the little kid are saying, we've observed for the past 14 days that there's been somehow an escalation again in firearms, in escalation again in crime. We're referring to, and I think this is one other element that we're sharply going to deal with it. There's the Judge Tulari finding last year October, which also makes some references, and I think that is the other part. My learned colleague have indicated, firearms, Mitchell's Plain, 15 stolen, 1 found, where's the other 14? We firmly believe, as the Cape Flat Safety Forum, those 14 firearms are still in circulation, are still killing our people. So this is but just one element of the campaign, and we want to thank all the partners, Gun Free South Africa, the lawyers, everyone that have made and ensured that this becomes a success. As I say, and as my colleague have indicated, we don't have the funds, we did not have the funds to pursue this matter. And I think from our side as the Cape Flat Safety Forum, in partnership with whoever is involved in this, we want to say thank you. And we want to say thank you on behalf of the other parents, the silent ones there, Nadia. And I'm sure after today, there would be many parents coming to say, I want to be part of it. And that's the message that we want to say across. It's not about publicity, it's about ensuring, in terms of the first responsibility of the Human Rights Bill, it's the responsibility of the South African Police Services to ensure the safety of each and every citizen. That's where we're coming from. Thank you very much, Program Director and everyone.
I think we just have to take this opportunity, as my colleague is saying. You know, on Saturday we had a workshop, and I need people to understand what is going on in our communities. The one mother was sharing, look, I can't mention a name or anything, but sharing, her son was shot 21 times, and this is an innocent boy, but they wanted to make sure that he's dead because he probably saw them. And she fell on her son just to hold him, and she felt that last moments, hoe sy lichaam nog geruk het. And I want to say, this is very serious. If we go to the shop, if we send somebody to the shop, we first need to check chats to hear if it's clear. If they're shooting, the chats go, they're shooting there by Dawood, you can't go that way. That is the life on the Cape Flats. And vandaag staan ek hier and I want to ask, I first want to thank the sponsors who's helping financially, but I'm asking this with this reason, please look into this and support us going forward, because die werk is so groot daar buite. We can't even, I mean with the movement, I had to sort myself out first to see, because I saw how the mothers is crying every day. Our mothers is dying of diabetes, of high blood, because they can't handle. There's nobody to turn to. There is absolutely nobody to turn to. So I'm standing here for all those mothers that's crying out there. There's nobody to help them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avril, and thank you everyone else also for sharing your stories. I think that brings us to the end of our event, but I know that there will be much more discussions and questions as we move forward. A lot has come out today, and I don't want to go into it too much. We've already heard so much already. So I'm going to hand over to Adele just to see us on our way and to say thank you to everyone.
Thanks, Yolandi. A lot of thanks have been said, but I do want to formally, on behalf of Gun Free, thank a number of people. And I'm happy to see you, Natalie Dirks. She's sitting at the back, one of our families. Thank you for making time to come. And thank you, Melanie and Rashida. Speaking from your heart, we did a bit of coaching as well, media training, about how to tell your story. And we're hoping to continue that. This is one of the skills about helping parents, families tell their story. And it's a lot of the work that Avril Andrews has done with us, is that part of the healing comes in telling the story. So again, just to thank the families for being here and for being willing to make yourselves visible. I want to thank our partners. Both Avril and Lynn have mentioned it, but we have formal partners with partnerships with Sonke Gender Justice. I don't think they're here. They gave apologies. But also Taryn Bannister's here from APCOF, the African Policing Civilian Oversight Forum. So they've walked with us this journey since we started 3 or 4 years ago. Provides kind of strategic advice. We meet regularly to think about, how we move forward. And then in particular, we couldn't have done this. We could not have found the families if it wasn't for the Cape Flats Safety Forum. That we gave you the names. We said, these are the Mitchell's Plain families. Help us find them. We couldn't have done it without you. And I'm not mentioning names for safety, but you know who you are. For the hall, for connecting us to people who can provide the food, for helping us run around and find the families, visiting them initially. And then to Avril, we've had a partnership with Avril over the last 18 months. And for working with us, with the families, helping us understand what the trauma journey is and being there, sharing your own story. So really to thank both the Moms Move for Justice and the Cape Flats Safety Forum. We would not be here today if it wasn't for you. And then, of course, finding a legal firm to do, and those of you who know me, I was straight. I'm meeting with you because I want pro bono. I'm not interested in discussing payment or part payment or what. You come on this case and you come on pro bono. We approached several firms. Norton Rose took the bait. Part of it might be, we didn't tell them, is Wim Trengove is our senior legal counsel. I think that helped. Also pro bono. And so it's been fantastic working with you and your team, Jason. And just to mention them again, so Jason White, it's Laura McFarlane, it's Tando Ndita, and then he's a candidate attorney, so he's going to circulate in a few months' time. But Lutando Buthelezi. Okay, so that's the legal team at NRF. They are not being paid a cent for this. And they have worked 3 or 4 years on this. This last year has been intense. And yesterday we were sitting with Jason and he was so calm at 1 o'clock saying we're going to lodge by 3. And he was relaxed on his computer, but he'd instructed his team to be at the High Court, and 3 o'clock it got stamped. And so we're moving forward. And we have got a long road ahead, but it's been an extraordinary partnership. And you know, often if you're pro bono, you kind of think you're going to be on the bottom. You know, they're going to take a while to get back to you. We've had pro bono relationships with ad agencies sometimes. And it's like it's like, okay, you're not paying us, we'll get back to you. Not this team. Within a day, we get responses. Within a few hours, we get the documents. We are seen as a serious paying client. And that really is. It's been fantastic to work with all of you. And then I guess, I mean, there is Alan's story still here, yeah. I want to acknowledge Alan. He was a chairperson of Gun Free South Africa, and we were at a meeting sometime, I think, in 2018, and we'd been talking about Project MP. We'd been at the Labour Court. We were following the Prinsloo gun saga. And Alan said, this is a no-brainer. We should be suing the state for this. And that's where the kind of idea, and we sat with it for about 2 years before we did anything. So we've come a long way, and we've got a long way to go, but thank you as journalists for putting this into the public, for making people aware about what's happening. And lastly, the Gun Free team. And then we are a small but highly specialized, efficient, organized, fantastic group of women. We are only women. There are 6 of us. And most of us are under 30. So, just saying. So thank you to the Gun Free team. I don't know where you all are, but you're there. And then that's it. Thank you. Thank you.